Something I've noticed is a lot of people live in a culture where they think they need to sacrifice in order to get ahead. We're taught as Christians the phrase, sacrifice brings forth the blessings of heaven. But in today's world, in today's culture, sacrifice is almost like a victim contest. You've heard phrases like, I sacrificed more, I gave more, I did so much, look at how much I sacrificed. Don't you know what I've given up for this? And it drives me crazy because it has such a similar energy to neediness, entitlement, and victimhood. Christ actually taught us that he was supposed to be the last and ultimate and the final sacrifice. And so I don't love when we perpetuate this culture of sacrifice like this. Does that make sense? And I know that this is just semantics, but in my own verbiage, I'm trying to replace it with the word surrender. I've heard people yell at each other saying, look at how much I've sacrificed. But you never hear people say something like, look at how much I surrendered. And that's because surrender has a lot more free will to it. We can often become victims to sacrifice, but we're not often victims of surrender. It's a small shift, but small verbal shifts are the things that completely change the way that we think about a thing. Surrender is something that I'm giving up intentionally, willfully, on purpose. I don't want to be a victim to sacrifice. I do think that the real reason that people sacrifice or have this sacrifice mentality instead of surrender is because sacrifice is often transactional. And most people want to get something back for whatever they gave up. Most people don't think about this consciously, but underneath there's an expectation that says, if I give this up, something should come back to me. And that could be recognition, appreciation, security, love, status, peace, blessings from God. And then when that return doesn't come, the sacrifice starts to feel unfair, feels like we gave it up for nothing. That's when people feel used, right? And that's when somebody starts to feel a victim. They're like, look at how much I gave up and nothing came back to me. The problem isn't giving something up. The problem is giving something up while secretly keeping score. People who surrender tend to feel lighter even when it costs you something. People who sacrifice tend to feel heavier, especially when the payoff doesn't arrive the way that they expect it to. And that's the difference. One is chosen freely and the other one is offered with strings attached. One clarification that I want to make here is that not everything falls into these same categories of surrender or sacrifice. There are things in life that are meant to be transactional. Building a business or studying for school are some examples. In these examples, you give up free time, you give up comfort, you give up ease, and you're doing it because you're increasing the probability of something better later. That's more of an investment. That's not unhealthy. That's not victimhood. And that's not even what I'm critiquing. The problem isn't in the effort or the delayed gratification. The problem is how people frame this mentally and emotionally. When somebody says, I sacrificed for my business, but they feel bitter and resentful or entitled, it usually means that they weren't investing in their business. They were suffering while hoping that the world would eventually pay them back for it. And that's a really fragile position to be in. A clean investment sounds a little bit different. It sounds more like, I chose this, I understood the odds, nothing is guaranteed. I'm not owed success for trying. If the business works, great. If it doesn't, that doesn't mean I was robbed or that God kept something from me that he owed me. Also, I try to be somebody who has faith that God will help me in my business. And I try to be somebody that has faith that God will guide me to the people that I need to help as my clients. And I do think that having faith is an important aspect of studying or building a business. But again, I'm not going to turn around and be angry with God or the universe or the world if I don't get a client, right? Whenever I get a client, I express gratitude to God. It's not like God owes me clients because I was faithful. So some things are investments, some things are surrender. And the moment you feel like someone or something or life itself owes you for what you've given up, you're no longer in either of those categories of surrender or investment. I just don't think that we need to be in this space where we think sacrifice is the only way that I'm going to get ahead. Sacrifice is what brings God's blessing. Sacrifice is what brings God's favor. I think that it just means that if we didn't get what we want, we're like, oh, I didn't sacrifice myself enough and I didn't tear myself down enough. I wasn't whatever enough, right? I wasn't enough. And we already have this idea that we're not enough. Almost every single person on the planet has some degree of the belief that they are not good enough as they are. And I just don't think believing like, oh, well, if you had just sacrificed more. Now, again, hard work is important. Investment is important. Doing your best is important. Effort, delayed gratification, pushing yourself, all really important things. But I don't think that the universe owes you when you push yourself or do your best.